Chapter 11. The doctor got to his feet. "Do I get my medal now?" he asked Stinks. The Sontaran sneered at him. "There are many races to come, Doctor, but I thank you for your data you have provided. We now know the speed that humans and Time Lords can reach. We can make use of fast creatures. A running target may draw the enemy's fire, for example." The doctor said nothing, but he was fuming inside. "Now for the long jump," called Stinks. "It'll be useful to find out how far humans can jump. Oh, and Time Lords too." His thin mouth covered up in a curl smile. "Lieutenant Skis, bring the humans." Skis nodded to the major and moved over to the stands. Captain Skis pushed the doctor toward the sandy area, the long jump pit. Soon, the doctor was lined up behind 5 students. He hadn't quite met any of them before, but that didn't mean he was willing to come to them, no. The doctor rushed to her, but it was too late. He stood up, all 4 Sontaran guns pointing at him. I thought that was not better. He couldn't think of a way out. "We have to jump," he told the other 2. "That way, we have a chance. If we don't jump, we have no chance at all." "But," began a scared-looking youth. The doctor shook his head. "No buts. You can all do this. You want to go to the Globe Games? Imagine the pressure there. World records at stake. TV cameras all over the world. Your family and friends watching. This would be a piece of cake compared to that." He was relieved to see them, almost smile. "That's it," he said. "You can do it." He was right. The 2 of them made it off the line. The doctor gave a sigh of relief. His joy didn't last long, though. It was now his turn. A blast of Skis' gun shot over the doctor's head, and he began to run. He knew he had built up as much speed as he could. Nearly there. One huge stride and another. His toe almost touched the fault line as he bent lower, preparing to jump. He jumped and soared away. He brought his back leg forward, bending he was almost sitting in mid-air. He felt as if he spent hours above the ground, days, not mere seconds. Then he could feel himself slowly getting lower. He was nearly at the line. He was going to make it. Down, down, down. His heels thudded into the sand. Just before the line, sand shoots exploded out of the pit, snapping fiercely. He lunged at his feet. Chapter 12. The sand swirls fell away, their teeth bouncing off the doctor's heavy boots. The doctor almost felt sorry for them as he jumped across the line, out of their reach. The students were cheering from the sands. The doctor felt like cheering himself. A few laser beams flying over the crowd soon shot him up. Though, that made the doctor serious again. He wondered what warped event he would have to face next. Lieutenant Slaw had gone back inside the gym. Nead came out again, carrying a long, thick rope coiled over his arm. Skis led forward, 7 students, all stocky and muscular. The doctor felt very skinny as he was pushed into the middle of them. The 8 of them were made to hold one end of the other cord. "If you let go of this rope, you'll be killed," the lieutenant told them. "Tug of war," the doctor said. "But who are we tugging against?" He knew that the Sontarans came from a world which was much higher gravity than Earth. They had devices in their suits to help them adapt to the gravity of whatever planet they were on. Even so, the huge muscles they built up in their home world would help them win, though. The doctor really hoped they weren't facing the Sontarans. They weren't. They were facing something worse. The doctor looked up in shock as a huge robot came towards them. It stood high on bent metal legs, black eyes on a stalked snake tail and a wide head, perched on a blocky body. As they watched, 8 metal cords sprung out from its sides like long, thin arms. These feelers waved their way forward, then grasped the rope. First a left feeler, then a right feeler, all along the end of the cord. Beneath the centre of the rope was a red line. The doctor dreaded to think that would happen to anyone who crossed it. "Right," he said to the team. "You all know how a tug of war is played. You've all seen what happens to people who lose a Sontaran game. So we are going to pull and pull and pull, and we are going to win. There were murmurs of yeah around the team. I can't hear you, called the doctor. We're going to win. Yeah, they cried. There wasn't time for a long prep talk. Skeed gave the signal and there was a tug of war began. It was well at first. Slowly but surely, the doctor's team were forcing the robot forwards towards the line. The red line. Closer and closer it came, almost there. And then the doctor felt himself yanked forward so quickly he was barely able to keep up right. The robot had been playing with them, judging their strength, and now they were running forward, unable to stop. The first athlete reached the red line almost before they knew what was happening. With a crackle, a wall of energy sprang from the line. The girl barely had time to scream before it hit. With the last of the blue flashes died away, there was nothing on the ground but dust. "Don't let go of the rope," yelled the doctor, as the others stood there stunned. "Keep pulling." He knew now they didn't stand a chance. He wouldn't let them give up, though. "It's too strong," sobbed the young woman behind him. "Yes, it is," said the doctor. But something wasn't quite right. The robot was strong, but not as strong as he had expected. His feelings of gravity, he cried. It must have controls which adjust its apparent mass like the Sontaran suits, but if they were set for Sontar, it would seem even stronger. He peered hard. Yes, there was a dial in the robot's head. The controls. "If only we could get close enough, I could change things," the doctor told the athletes. "I could make it feel really light, so we could pull it over the line easily." "But we can't get that close," shouted the youth as they were dragged towards the line again. "I know," cried the doctor. "What we need..." He broke off. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had robbed them as he began to let go of the rope. Surely he was dreaming. Crawling across the arena towards the robot was Emma. Two of the Sontarans were marching the crowd. The other two had their guns pointing at the doctor's team, knowing they were looking towards the robot. He had to make sure it stayed that way. "Tell you what, let's sing a song," he called. "What? Are you joking?" shouted a young man from somewhere behind the doctor. "Not at all. A song. Keep it all for opponents one. Just like that worked songs from the old American. The slaves would sing a song as they worked to keep a rhythm. Now even the past coded messages under the noses of the slavers. Come on! I'll sing the verse, you join in with the chorus. You'll know this one." He began to sing in a top voice. "Swing low, swing chariot, coming forward to carry me home." The rest of the team slowly took up the chorus. "Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forward to carry me home." The doctor began to belt out a verse. "I looked at the robot and what did I see? Carrying forward to carry me home. A dial by his head, the turn down I should be. Coming forward to carry me home." He glanced at the Sontarans and it seemed to have picked up the message to Emma. As he gave a wave and decided to climb on the robot's leg, he joined the team in belting out the chorus again, then added a verse. He hoped Emma was listening closely. "When the dial goes down, the weight goes down too. Coming forward to carry me home. Then jump off, or the line will frazzle you. Coming forward to carry me home." Emma was on the robot's shoulder as they sang the chorus again. The doctor kept singing to his team. "When it's done, everyone must pull together. Coming forward to carry me home. It'll feel like nothing later than a feather. Coming forward to carry me home." He saw Emma's hand reach out and grab the dial just below the robot's head. She turned it. The doctor's team didn't pause. They just kept pulling. "Stop!" he cried, but it was too late. For a moment he thought the robot was flying. He came towards him like a bullet out of a gun. The robot flew over the line. Energy beams leapt up from the ground. There was a crackling sound and a huge explosion of blue and green when it cleared. The robot was gone. There was no sign of Emma. The doctor turned to his team, who were all crying with joy. "The girl who was up there," he said. "Where did she go?" "I didn't see her jump down," said one, and the others all shook their heads. "I don't think she had time," said another. "I think she was on the robot when it came across the line." "Oh no." "You should have let her go before she started pulling," said the doctor. But he said it was very quietly. He knew he hadn't been clear enough. Hard to let people know what to do in a song. It wasn't the team's fault. His heart sank. No human could have survived the flash of energy. If Emma hadn't got off the robot in time, she would have been fired. Chapter 13. "Doctor, look," called Holly's voice from the stands. A red laser beam flew over the doctor's head and he turned. Holly hadn't been shouting. A warning, though. She'd been trying to tell the doctor about something else. All four of the Sontarans were floating off the ground. They were trying to aim their guns but couldn't manage it. Every few seconds they came down back to Earth, but each step forward they'd take pushing them up again. The doctor gave a huge laugh. "All their gravity controls must be connected to a central matrix. When Emma changed the robot's mass, the controls in the Sontaran suits were affected too." He shook his head, still grinning. "Well, that's a clone race for you. What's good enough for one?" Then he stopped smiling. There was no time to waste. There was the chance he'd been waiting for. He'd run to the tunnel that led to the gym. Okay, so the buildings were sealed, but at least they'd be out of the way of the Sontarans. This door was now locked too, sealed by the Sontarans. Back in the arena, he looked around, searching for clues. He thought if they could disable the Sontarans. But if anyone went near them, the Sontarans did their best to shoot. How long would it be before one of them hits his mark? Getting close enough to the Sontaran's weak spot, his probing vent wasn't possible. The doctor looked upwards. The bundle of missiles was still hanging above, beneath the force dome. The weapons were held in a force spear. Spears often had a weak spot that had to join. The doctor stared. Yes, there it was. He could see a flicker of energy, a little white hole buzzing in the top. If he can get to it, if he saw a screwdriver, he could release the missiles. He glanced around the arena. Surely he could come up with a plan using a load of top athletes and a long rope. Yes! "Tug of war team, to me," he called. The 6 strong young people ran over to the doctor. "Free this side, free that side," he told them. "Stretch that rope across and climb up the stands as high as you can. Hold the rope tight." They didn't even ask why. They just nodded and ran off to do as he asked. "Holly," called the doctor. She jagged over to him. "How you feeling? Head okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "What do you want me to do?" "Well, I'm led to believe that you might be the best gymnast in the country." He pointed to the rope, now stretching across the arena at a height of several meters. It passed below the force sphere, containing the weapons. "Could you get that rope to the spear?" She nodded with a little bit of help. "Piece of cake." "Gently won't hurt you," he told her. "It's just holding everything in one place." He took out his gun screwdriver and adjusted the settings. "Just push it through that little white hole. We've got to set a 10-second delay. This should allow you to get off safely before the spear vanishes. Do you think you could do that?" "No problem," she said. "I can leap off and catch the rope as I go, and I'll just shine along it. Plenty of time." The doctor smiled at her and then turned to the crowd. "Keep as far back as possible," he called. "When that force sphere goes, all the javelins, hammers, shots and things will fall to the ground. You don't want to be below that when that happens." The students moved back. Holly called over 5 other gymnasts when they all climbed up to the stand to where half the tug of war team waited. The gymnasts pulled themselves along the rope until they were under the force sphere. 3 of them stood up, 2 more climbed onto the shoulders. There were gasps from the students watching below. No one had ever seen a feat like this before. A few loud yells of concern as Holly reached the top of the pyramid. Then she bent her knees and leapt. There were more cries from the crowd, but Holly made it. She grabbed a sticking out javelin, and both hands she let go of one hand and reached it up for the pole slowly. She made her way towards the top of the force sphere and its weak spot. Another gymnasts were making their way down. They wanted to be out of the way when the missiles started to fall. This meant that the only people looking into the arena not up at Holly. "Doctor!" called one of the gymnasts. The doctor turned his head and she pointed towards Sontarans. They were still floating along, but their steps weren't taking them as far off the ground. They were able to bring their arms down lower. They were also heading towards the doctor as best as they could. "Their suits! Gravity is going to go back to normal," the doctor said to himself. "Any moment now, they could regain control of their guns and the doctor and his friends were all doomed." He glanced over Holly. If only they had those missiles, things would be alright. "Just put the sonic screwdriver through the hole, Holly," he called. But something wasn't right. Holly had stopped moving. "Are you alright?" asked the doctor. "I'm so dizzy," she cried. She raised her hand to her head. The doctor's horror. He saw the sonic screwdriver slip from her fingers. It fell down to the ground below. It landed at the feet of Lieutenant Skis. Chapter 14. "No!" shouted the doctor. Without the screwdriver, they had no hope at all. Skis leapt over to pick it up. The Sontaran's arms went down and his legs went up. Skis hung in the air and turned in lazy circles, unable to control himself back down. But he was still grabbing at the sonic screwdriver every time his arms came near to the ground. Now the other Sontarans were heading that way too. There was a gasp from the watching students. Carl, the sprinter, had dashed out from the crowd and started past Skis and scooped out the sonic screwdriver. The students cheered. Yay! But the other Sontarans were coming towards Carl. They were trying to point their guns at him. "One day, Carl might save the world," the doctor said under his breath. "Would it be today?" Another man ran out. The doctor had seen him before. He'd been the one hurdled 100-metre sprint. He passed Carl, grabbing the solid screwdriver like a baton in a relay race. Carl fell to his knees and the blaster beam flew over his head. "Go, Freddy!" yelled the crowd. The Sontarans could have chased away they were going that quickly. By the time they were able to point their guns at Freddy, another sprinter had taken the screwdriver. The runners were raving their way across the arena. The trouble was, they were going further and further away from the doctor. Then a voice called out from the crowd near the sprinters. Sid was hobbling down to the arena. "To me!" he shouted. The Sontarans were still trying to aim at the runner, but that had the sonic screwdriver. Carl had got up from the ground. He sprinted off again and grabbed the screwdriver just in time. He headed towards the stands and passed it to Sid. Sid raised his arm. "Holly, get down from there," he called. "I can't." The girl was clinging to the force sphere for dear life. The Sontarans were heading for Sid. Their strides were getting heavier. Any second now, they'll be able to aim at him. The doctor looked at Sid. He had gasped what was the young man's javelin through his mind. Then he looked up at Holly. She was frozen with fear. The doctor felt a rush of guilt. He should have never asked someone with a head injury to climb so high. He stood up straight. It was his fault, so he had to put it right. "Sid, just do it!" he yelled. Sid glanced at the doctor and nodded. He raised his arm and threw the solid screwdriver as if it was a tiny javelin. The screwdriver flew into the air higher and higher. Sid's aim was true even. It hit the sphere's weak spot dead on. The crowd gasped. Nothing happened. "I set a 10-second delay," shouted the doctor. He should have started running almost before the sonic had left Sid's hand. The force sphere hung over a spot more than 100 metres away. He had 10 seconds to get there. If the doctor made it in time, it would be a new world record. He sprinted towards the spot. Lieutenant Skis was still there, going round in circles. The Sontarans tried to aim his gun at the running doctor. He was nearly there. There was a fizzling noise from above and the force sphere vanished. The doctor dodged the missiles as they ran down around him. He caught the falling Holly and sped away. The crowd cheered. They cheered even harder of a discus triumph into the back of the spinning Skeeze's neck. The Sontaran lay flat, still hanging, just above the ground. Then all of a sudden he fell to the floor with a crash. The gravity's back to normal. The doctor got to his feet, leaving Holly lying on the ground. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the students grabbing weapons. But he was watching the Sontarans. Major Skanks, Captain Skeed and Lieutenant Slaw were all headed towards the young athletes. They were raising their guns. "Sontarans!" yelled the doctor, as loud as he could. "I won your games. I am the victor. I demand the right to face you in combat. If you value your honour, face me now!" The three aliens turned towards the doctor. Their guns were pointing straight at him, but now their backs were to the students. About 50 missiles hit the Sontarans at once. Some bounced off their backs, off their heads or their armour, but enough found their mark. Skent, Skeed and Slaw fell face down to the ground. They didn't stir. The crowd went wild. Chapter 15. With the Sontarans out of the picture, the force field vanished. A series of small pops came from the alien suits. As controls short-circuited, the doctor tried the tunnel door and was pleased to find it was no longer sealed. The athletes steamed back into base. Most didn't even pause to change, just headed straight out the front door in their nightclothes. Carl and Sid both inside insisted on taking Holly to a hospital. The start of a beautiful friendship, perhaps. Soon the building was empty. Just the doctor and the bodies remained. There had been too many deaths. There were so many families who would have been proud, waiting to cheer on their loved ones at the Globe Games. There had been no medals now, just endless suffering. The doctor couldn't condone what the students had done, covering up the deaths, but he held on to the fact they hadn't been the killers. He hoped things would have been better for them. They all learned what they could do when they worked together. Their futures could be brighter than their past, whatever it held. The doctor went to check on the TARDIS. He needed to know that he could get away. He hoped that he still didn't have an electric charge running through it. He found that the building wasn't empty after all. There was a young woman sitting on the floor by the TARDIS where Jessie's body had been. She was elderly, kicking the toolbox and still lay next to it. "Hello," said the doctor. "Hello," said Emma. The doctor sat down next to her, crossing his legs. "I'm glad you're not dead," he said. "I thought you would have left though. The doors aren't sealed now." "I left the building," she said, "but I didn't have anywhere to go, so I came back to find you." "Are you leaving? It's all sorted now?" "Is it?" The doctor looked at her. "You've forgotten the people who died, not just the ones who killed by the Sontarans. The ones from earlier, Laura, Joe, Andy. But the Sontarans killed them, though." "Oh, no, they didn't." The doctor shook his head sadly. "The Sontarans only arrived tonight. That was pretty clear from the way they acted anyway. The Sontarans don't need to electrocute people, despite what we saw in the arena. And talking of things electric, how about the electrician?" He reached out for the booted foot and kicked the toolbox. "The who?" "The electrician. I want to know what Sid was doing walking around here late at night. He had to be quite close to hear you scream. No one else heard you. Sid, I thought, was an electrician. Then there was this toolbox and these special rubber boots, so when I had the chance, I asked him." Emma said nothing. She was still biting her lip as the doctor told his tale. Sid had sneaked out and called an electrician. He thought about calling the police, but he was worried because he held to hush up the deaths. The electrician could find out what was going on and maybe no one else could die. That was his idea. He told the man to sneak in and come down to meet him late at night, last night. But someone had found him first. I wonder where his body is. Emma reached out and took a hammer from the toolbox. The doctor plucked it from her hand. I don't think so, he said. You see, there's still one more death we have to talk about. He looked into her eyes. The death of a young swimmer called Emma. The girl took a deep breath. How long have you known? Oh, I've suspected it for a while. You gave yourself away. No big mistakes though. But it was enough. You said you'd never seen the bodies. Then you talked about seeing a Laura floating in the pool. It was pretty clear you were up to something dodgy. Could have been anything though. The doctor sighed. But there was more. Lots more. The hand I found by the pool. The length of time you were able to stay underwater. I remember how you asked about the Rootons. They threw me for a moment. But I just wanted to find out how much I knew. And I told you. He was staring into her eyes, except there were a few things I didn't mention at the time, like how the Rootons don't like heat, even heated swimming pools, and the big one, they can absorb electricity and use it to kill. Emma was hanging on to his every word, and when I found out sometimes we're looking for a shape changer, that clinched it. The doctor looked at her sadly. You're the shape changer. You're Rooton. Chapter 16. Emma nodded slowly. Why? Said the doctor. Why come here in the first place? Why you cross land? Oh no. Emma the Rooton shook her head. I was sent here, you see. The war's heading this way. We're going to need Earth soon. It takes time to form a base on an uninhabited planet. Wiping out the natives can cost you too much. Better to get them to do it for you. The doctor didn't like what he was doing. You wanted the humans to wipe themselves out. That was the plan. The Globes Games are a world event. Many of the Earth's nations are on the brink of war. If I was part of the games, I could push them over that brink. A scandal here, a murder there. Asked the doctor. What sort of thing? That sort of thing. So I sent here to base so I could wait for the games themselves. But you wanted to practice being human first, said the doctor. He was almost enjoying himself, seeing all the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. As Rootons are used to being in the water, you decided to become a swimmer. You hid in the pool until someone came along on their own. The real Emma, you killed her, then you took her body apart. You needed to do that to find out how much it worked, so you can copy it for yourself. Human bodies are very complex, the Rooton agreed. Even if I mastered the shape, it would take some time to copy the movement. I found the human girl Laura. She joined me in the pool, thinking I was Emma. I found out much from her. She saw I was not swimming in the human way, and she knew something was wrong. Then she spotted one of my hands that I had not disposed of. She began to scream. So you killed her, sucked her. All the electricity out of the building, zapped her with it. The first power cut. The doctor spoke in a matter-of-fact way, tired that he was really feeling, before hiding poor dead Emma's hand down a gating. Yes. After that, I was ready. I filled myself with electricity before I tried to swim. That way I could protect myself if anyone found me. You didn't stop at 2 deaths. Did Laura's boyfriend suspect something? What about Joe the sprinter? He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then I saw the electricity poking around. I was on my way to the pool. I knew I would have to get rid of him. It was a close thing though. I had to wait until I'd taken off these silly boots. I couldn't shock him while he was wearing those. She laughed. Talking of boots, guess that's how I found when the ship appeared. The doctor stood up and turned to face the TARDIS. He hadn't really looked at it since he landed. First there had been power cut, then it had been electrified. He walked around to the back of the police box. There was only a small gap between the ship and the wall. It was just big enough to hold the body of the electrician. It had been a short, dark-skinned man with black curly hair and a tiny moustache. I electrified the ship to stop you finding him, the Rooton Emma said, joining him. Well, partly that, but be put to death if I fell without completing my mission, and I would needed your help to defeat the Sontarans. I mean, I didn't think you'd help me wipe out the humans. He laughed. The doctor didn't laugh. He wasn't finding any of this funny. I have a question too, she went on. Oh yes. If you've known that for so long, I'm not Emma, the human, why didn't you say something before? This time the doctor did laugh. Because I'm a fool, he said. I thought you might be trying to change. You were helping me. Oh, I know. You just wanted to defeat us Sontarans for you. And you were still helping at times. You seemed to know the concern for humans here. Helping Holly when she was hurt, that sort of thing. He paused to look sadly. Oh, I thought if I treated you kindly, you might realise that my way is better. You thought stop the killing for a moment. I even thought you giving your life for us all. No human could have survived what happened to you in the arena. Then I realised if you could just absorb the power. If you'd looked up, you would have seen in my body, she told him. I hadn't got a grip on being Emma again, you see. I'd shifted into Sontaran form to get out of the gym. My dad nearly found me when I was talking to you through the cupboard door. Luckily, we shape-changed elites are made to learn Sontaran as a default form. Lucky for me, I suppose, the doctor agreed. The blast made me reverse my own body, then launched me right across the arena. I stayed out of sight until it was all over. You didn't need my help anymore. You could deal with this on time yourself. She smiled at him. The doctor didn't smile back. And now what? We all live happily ever after. Well, why not? Because I don't know if you have changed. You don't seem sorry that you killed 6 people here. Emma, Laura, Andy, Joe, Jess, the electrician. Do you still plan to win Earth with these Rutans? But they would kill me if I don't, she said. The doctor shook his head. No, not if I took you away from it in the TARDIS. I could give you a second chance. There was a flash of green light. The doctor flung up his hand to shield his eyes, and he could see again. Emma had gone. In the girl's place was a large green jelly-like blob, pulsating with white veins. Hairy white fronds floated from its body, like a beard made of seaweed. Showing your true colours, the doctor asked. Mainly green, I think. Mainly green, I see. The Rutan spoke. It was no longer using Emma's voice. The sound was low and grating. I could kill you right now and take your graft, it said. The light bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered and the energy crackled across the alien's skin. I think I could learn to fly it, the Rutan went on. My mission would be easy with a time ship. My people would reward me for it. The doctor waved a booted foot in the air. Just try it, he said. You give me any deadly shocks while I've got my special rubber boots. Now come on, what's it going to be? This is your last chance to take your last chance. He braced himself, not sure that the boots would be able to protect him if the alien attacked. But the Rutan seemed to be thinking about his words. The green glow within his own round body went darker and then became lighter again. I, he said slowly, I, death to Rutans. The shout came from the doorway. The shout came from the doorway. The doctor spun around, made a skank. No, I'm going to do this again next time. I just read this properly. Death to Rutans. The shout came from the doorway. The doctor spun around. Major Skeng staggered into the room. The broken tip of the javelin was still sticking out his private vent. The doctor couldn't believe that Sontaran was still alive. Sontaran. The Rutan was rushing across the room towards his enemy. The lights went out and the doctor could still see. Tendrils of power whipped across the Sontaran's Rutan's body, lighting up the room. I could give you a death you do not deserve, cried Stinks. You will die in battle with honour. It is you who will die, the Rutan replied. Major Skins pointed his one light gun to the Rutan and fired. Beam after beam on red light hit the crackling green Rutan blob. Power snaked from the Rutan. A line of energy hit the broken piece in the metal that had stuck in the Sontaran's neck. All of Base's energy was poured into Sken's weak spot. Green blood began to bubble from the Major's mouth. I die in battle. He gasped as he fell to his knees. A second later, he lay on the floor, dead. But it wasn't over yet. Sparks began to shoot from Skenz's body. The doctor turned to the Rutan. "You have to contain the power!" There was no answer. The doctor looked closer. Skenz's laser beams had hit the target too many times. The Rutan, he couldn't help still thinking of it as Emma, was dead too, but somehow it kept sucking power from base, pouring into the Sontaran. The doctor needed to get out of there, and fast. He clicked his fingers. Wait, hold on. And the TARDIS door swung open. "Who needs a key?" he said. It was the work of a moment to take off. He looked at the scanner, and he did so. Just in time to see a massive flash of white light. The whole building had exploded. Well, at least that's what tied up any loose ends. No alien bodies to be found. The doctor thought back to that last body, that green blob slowly folding in on itself. "Wish I knew what you decided, Emma," he whispered. "I don't know if a second chance is very often. I think we might have given each other another second chance. He turned away from the scanner and began to set the controls. He had other places to visit, other lives to save. With a sad smile, he quit himself. Other lives to try and to save. All he could do was his best.